Bible talks about the wives of Esau in 3 chapters of the book of Genesis. In this sense, 6 different names are presented in the biblical text. Judith, daughter of Beri; Basmate, daughter of Elam; Malate, daughter of Ishmael; Ada, daughter of Elam; Alibama, granddaughter of Zebion and Basmate, daughter of Ishmael. But that does not mean that Esau had 6 different wives. It is very likely that some of these names are just variations of names for the same wives. This is why this issue involving Esau's wives is considered by scholars a somewhat complicated subject to understand. And in this video we will talk exactly about the wives of Esau. In general, most scholars argue that Esau had 3 or 4 wives. This indefinition occurs precisely because of the differences in names in Esau's wives lists. It all starts in Genesis chapter 26. Where the biblical text reports that when it was 40 years old, Esau married 2 Hittite women. First, Esau's wife was called Judith and was Beri's daughter. The second wife was named Basmate and was Elam's daughter. The biblical text no longer brings any specific information about these 2 women, but they were a source of spirit bitterness to Isaac and Rebekah, as we read in Genesis 26:35. Then in Genesis chapter 28, the biblical writer records which Esau went to pick up a wife at his uncle Ishmael's house. Then Esau, according to the biblical text, ended up marrying Malate, daughter of Ishmael and sister of Nebaiote, as we read in Genesis chapter 28 and verse 9. Then and already in Genesis chapter 36, the Bible brings the record of descent 36 from Esau. And it is at this point that the difficulties of interpretation of Esau's wives arise. This is because in Esau's genealogical data in Genesis 36, the names of his wives are presented differently from previous listing. Firstly, the Hittite Judite wife does not have her name mentioned in Genesis 36. Secondly, Elam's daughter is mentioned by the name Ada and no longer Basmat. Third, on the other hand, Ishmael's daughter is mentioned by the name Basmate instead of Malat, as in the previous lists. And finally, the list brings another different name, Alibama, daughter of Anah and granddaughter of Zebahon, which is not previously mentioned. And in view of this general framework, the inevitable question arises: to resolve the difficulty involving the number of Esau wives, scholars have proposed at least 3 alternatives. The first alternative suggests that there have been changes to the names in the transmission of these lists. In other words, supposedly the differences in the names of Esau's wives in the list of Genesis would have been the result of copyist errors. For example, the second alternative suggests that different names are cognomes. For example, some commentators propose that Ulibama may be an alternative name of Judith. Obviously, this possibility also depends on Beri to be an alternative name of Anah, as Judith is cited as a daughter of Beri and Ulibama as the daughter of Anah. Similarly, Ada seems to be an alternative name for Basmat the Hittite. This is because the 2 names, Ada and Basmat, are cited in connection with Elam, or Hittite. The same can also be said about Ishmael's daughter, who on a list is quoted by the name Mahalat, while on another list is cited by the name Basemat. The third alternative to trying to solve the difficulty with the names of Esau's wives suggests that perhaps Esau necessarily married more than 3 wives. For example, if only the daughter of Elam and Ishmael's daughter had their names alternate in the different biblical listing, then Esau would have married 4 women, being Judite, not cited in Genesis of Genesis because he allegedly did not have generated descendants for Esau, or Alibama, Basmate, daughter of Ishmael, who is also called Ada, and Malat, daughter of Ishmael. But in any case, the truth is that there is no explanation that definitively solves this issue. But the main point about Esau's wives is to understand the problem they represented. This is because when Esau married, he eventually disrespected his family's purpose of staying separated from Canaanite peoples. The Bible says that when Isaac was 40 years old, Abraham had the spiritual discernment of seeking a wife for his son among his own lineage, far from Canaan. the land that was occupied by the peoples who would be subdued by their descendants in the conquest of promised land. But when Esau turned 40, he simply took 2 Hittite women to himself. The Hittites were a people counted among the Canaanites, and in taking this attitude, Esau showed his lack of commitment to the covenant of God with Abraham. It is difficult to know if Isaac, the father of Esau, was negligent at this point, but no doubt it is correct to understand that Esau was at least irresponsible with the covenant view for Abrahamic descent. Esau lacked spiritual discernment, and he married his first 2 wives, who, according to the biblical text, bitter the life of Isaac and Rebekah. Probably those women brought their foreign lifestyle to the precepts observed by the Alliance family. And then, when he apparently realized that he was wrong to marry Canaanite women, and tried to demonstrate to his parents a similar obedience to his brother Jacob, the unbeliever Esau sought to marry an Abraham family woman. The problem is that Esau chose as his wife one of Ishmael's daughters, the carnal line of Abraham, and once again, Esau turned out to be even more unworthy of the Abrahamic blessing by increasing his disapproval. Even later, the sequence of biblical history records alliances between Edomites, who were descendants of Esau, and the Ishmaelites, who were descendants of Ishmael, together in opposition to the people of Israel. An example of this is Psalm 83, in which the psalmist speaks of the Edomites and the united Ishmaelites to other peoples, seeking to take what belonged to the people of the Lord, and trying to ensure that there was no more memory of the name of Israel. And that shows that Esau's error in taking his wives had historical implications following the biblical account. And that is all we can say about Esau's wives.
Yes, if you got this far, you had focus, presence, and interest. That alone sets you apart from most people who stop halfway. How about leaving a comment sharing what resonated most with you? Also, take a look at the description links. There's more content made with the same care for you. Thanks, big hug, and see you in the next one.